Welcome to the Pearls of Wisdom podcast, brought to you by Southern Jewelry News and Jewelry Store Marketer. Hello, everyone. This is Guy with Jewelry Store Marketers, and we are here at the Atlanta Jewelry Show final day. At the end of the day, we have another episode of the Pearls of Wisdom Jewelry podcast. I'm here with Elisa Dillon. Thank God I'm here with Elisa Dillon from Southern Jewelry News, and also we come back full circle to where it all began with Chuck Koehler of Anthony Jewelers and more. And for our, I don't know which episode this is, but we're glad to have you back.
Glad to be back.
Chuck, okay, you were just telling me, but give me the whole rundown. What all do you do?
Well, let's see. I have a jewelry store in Nashville, Tennessee. It's called Anthony Jewelers. I have a trade shop, which is where we do work for other jewelry stores, and that's called CMK Company. Mm-hmm. I've owned that since 1984. I have a company that does Fingerprint Jewelry, which we invented about 10 or 11 years ago, which is called Touched Impressions. Mm-hmm. And then we have a mail order repair service for people out in the heartland of America that don't have access to a jewelry store. Yeah. And that's called Heartland Repair Services. So people, you can be in the middle of Kansas and not have a jewelry store for 200 miles right. and be missing like a diamond out of your wedding ring and need a place to have it repaired. So Heartland Repair Services does that.
Wow. And that's all?
No.
I'm a first responder, and I'm a rescue swimmer out of Nashville, Tennessee.
Really?
And this other little thing, I write up for a publication called Southern Jewelry News, and I'm almost at the 20-year mark. I'm within a few episodes of hitting like my 21st year.
Wow, because I'm 22 years, so I knew you came on, I was just there a couple years before you started writing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you and I, Bill and Chris have all been together as a team for,
a long time.
Almost 20 years.
Like a lot of the jewelry industry, it's a family. Your family once it is. So it's funny that our inaugural episode was with Chuck at the Atlanta Jewelry Show, and we're just so glad that we could get you back on again. Because
glad to do it, because one of the things I was asked to talk about is, some of the things, what's going on in the jewelry business, which is kind of what my column is about.
Yeah.
Right.
But, here we sit for my second time to be on the Pearls of Wisdom. We wanted to call it, wasn't it Stoned was our first one, and then it got overruled, so I got to remember Pearls of Wisdom. But, once you're back for your second event, it means that it's still going.
Yeah.
And so if you think about it, in a generation, all of us in the jewelry business that have been there for a long time, we've gone from the yellow pages to the podcast space. Right. Where, there was a time you were sitting there meeting with a rep trying to figure out, what to put in a yellow pages ad.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it's fun. You tweak it to death. Well, what if we change the font, make this bigger, make this smaller? Yeah. Now it's the same thing. Now you're trying to decide, what do we talk about in a podcast? Well, I have a lot of stuff to talk about in the podcast.
Right.
So this is what's going on today. So where do we start?
Yeah. So tell me about that. The yellow pages to the podcast. So you're talking about the real book, yellow page book that you used to get.
Oh yeah.
So that's how people got business. Right?
Yeah, that was how
they're looking for a den. They're looking for a jeweler. They're going to their yellow pages and under jeweler. Right. So now what you're saying is, I'm looking for a jeweler or whatever, and they're going to go Google or whatever, or maybe they're going to find out and
well, it's just
if
like
there's a podcast about it, people want to listen to.
It's just like with YouTube. If you want to learn how to fix your riding lawnmower,
guess where you're going?
Yeah, you just Google it, or I don't Google. I use DuckDuckGo now.
That's right.
And there's reasons for that. Use what works for you.
Yeah.
But there was a time where, with the yellow pages, that was how people found you.
Right.
But now, because when I moved to my new location 2.5 years ago, I was forced out. Some developers bought my shopping center and they were going to bulldoze it. So a little panicky. But I found a spot, and it's not right on the road. It's slightly hidden, but it's in a really nice place. It's very easy to get to. But one of the things that I have learned is nobody like it's not as important to be right on the road where people see you, because nobody looks for a business like that. You want to know if there's a jewelry store near you, you start by opening this.
Yeah.
And so as long as you're found in here, your customers will find you.
Right.
And it's funny with our location that we're a little tricky to find, but our motto is we're easier to find the second time. And then everybody says, this is the most convenient location. Right, I'll pull right up to your door, no traffic, no nothing. So
Nice.
Perfect. So Yellow Pages to podcast, the website, whatever, but now they have to pay attention to technology. That's what.
Well, we've always had to do that because remember when all of a sudden the fax machine came out, and every morning you'd go in there and there were all of the jokes that your friends had sent you overnight, 8.5 by 11 jokes.
Right.
And, but so, we got through it, and then we go on to websites and all of that. So now we're into the podcast space. And the fact that I'm back doing a second one means that, we're still in the podcast space.
I thought it meant that I guess he was good enough the first time. So.
It was probably the $500 you slipped me.
Of course not. Yeah, thanks for that.
All right.
But you know what? We're going to talk about some of the things going on in the jewelry business that's current. As being a writer for a national publication, that I get a lot of calls because people don't know who to call. Like, hey, what do you know about something? So that kind of keeps me in the loop or whatever.
Yeah.
But before we get to that, we're going to take a break and go to our first sponsor, Guy.
Hey, well, my name is Guy, and my company is Jewelry Store Marketers, and we build websites, but we really focus on local SEO and making sure you get found organically with proper SEO techniques, on-page optimizations, off-page link building, and more. Our company handles and has handled many websites throughout the years, and marketing campaigns with social media, email marketing, and more. So Jewelry Store Marketers is the focuses on local jewelry stores and making sure you get found.
And how do our listeners find you?
You can find us at jewelrystoremarketers.com. My name is Guy. You can find us on social media and more. So, yes.
All right. Well, we're going to talk about social media.
All right. Sounds good.
It's a crowded space.
It is.
And with podcasts, there's kind of a funny thing in Hollywood that now every celebrity has a podcast. And so now kind of one of the thing like, how do you say this? Where if you don't want to go to a party, if somebody comes up to you and says, hey, what are you doing Friday night?
Yeah.
You start going through everything in your head. All right, what can I come up with? Because I don't even know what you're going to ask, but I don't want to do it. You know?
Mm-hmm.
But so it's that same thing with in Hollywood, that all of your Hollywood friends basically call their other Hollywood friends, and they're like going, I don't want to be on your podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I barely like you anyway. But all of a sudden. But if you are going to do a podcast, where do you host it? So something that's happening right now, growing out there in the world, is, let's look at 3 major platforms: Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. All right. None of those platforms produce any content whatsoever. Facebook literally doesn't write anything and put on their Facebook page for me to read. I have to write something and put on my Facebook page for people to read. It's the same thing with YouTube and the same thing with Twitter. None of those platforms produce content. So how do they make money? They make money by other people producing content and putting it on their space. At which point, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, they will then look at how many people are seeing that and reacting to my post, and they're like, I can sell those eyeballs to an advertiser because people are seeing Chuck's post. So what happens when these 3 major platforms take their biggest audience generation people and kick them off the platforms? Okay, those people don't go away from social media. those people just merely go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So what's happening is if you do a podcast, and this is just for the listeners, if you're sitting there thinking, where do I go? How do I do this? Don't overlook Rumble. Okay? Rumble is the new competitor to YouTube.
Okay. Wow.
And so what's happening is every time YouTube kicks somebody off of YouTube or censors them, you can only be censored so many times. Like, I don't get on Facebook hardly anymore because every time I log on, I'll see I have a post that went against community standards, and they pull something up from 11 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I can't even advertise anymore there because if I advertise, that I have to jump through all these hoops to explain to them why in 2008 I posted a funny picture. But so, and it's happening across a lot of platforms. All of these audiences and all of these eyeballs are going somewhere. And so you have to be like cognizant of where they're going.
Yeah.
So one of the things with YouTube is a very, very crowded podcast space.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Rumble is not. So, but with Rumble, what you can do, that there's some sort of a link. I forgot how it works, but it's pretty easy to figure out.
Sure.
But every time I post something on YouTube, it propagates over on my Rumble page.
Really? Okay.
So it takes my content that's new content. So if I post a video and put it on YouTube, it automatically goes to my Rumble account. So I start to get more eyeballs over on Rumble. So just if you're starting something new, don't overlook Rumble as a platform, because right there you can be a big fish in a small pond.
There you go.
But you won't be a big fish in a small pond, but you'll be a fish in a big pond pretty quick.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Wow.
Oh, that's
pretty
interesting.
amazing. Yeah.
I
didn't know
much
about
of,
that.
Yeah.
But also take the same thing with Facebook, that when they decided that, because I had a column that I wish I had brought it, I could show you one of my last posts I put as a columnist outside of the jewelry industry, because I had a column that I'd been building an audience that I paid Mark Zuckerberg untold amounts of money to build this audience. And then they took it away because he didn't like what I posted. Yeah. But, on some of my content, you get 20, 30, 40,000 views, 1,200 shares, 1,500 comments, and things of that nature. To now, I'll maybe get 5 because I'm being throttled over there.
Wow.
But just because they decided they didn't want what I write, I didn't go away.
Yeah.
You can find me on Gab. You can find me on Parler. You can find me on Truth Social, and you can find me on Clout Hub. Wow. And now you can actually find me on Twitter, simply because I've never really cared for Twitter, but I'm only over there just to follow the train wreck of the whole Elon Musk Twitter, because Twitter's doing the same thing, that they're kicking people off, and they're all going somewhere else. So,
yeah. So smaller platforms, don't ignore them. That's
don't put it this way: if you're going to ignore a platform, start to ignore the bigger ones, because and just follow the news. A lot of people thought I was crazy when I was saying things that, I don't think
I
Facebook's...
thought that was just the general thought.
that is the general thought. It is a correct one at that. But, people thought I was crazy when I was saying that, it's possible that Facebook and YouTube or Twitter may not be around in a year or two. And people thought I was crazy until they started paying attention, seriously paying attention to the news on it. And there's no good news stories about it.
Yeah.
Everything about it is bad.
All right. So jewelers, pay attention to Rumble as well as some other platforms.
Yeah, like I say, there's a lot of them. Truth Social is the biggest one, and but Gab is really good.
Perfect.
Parler's good. Clout Hub's good, and it's just kind of one of those that I went from having one Facebook page where I was on one platform, Facebook, to now I'm on 4 or 5, and there's different audiences on each one. Right. So it's kind of interesting that they forced the competition.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but as part of that, one of the things I noticed, let's see. something I want everybody to pay attention to is like with the DuckDuckGo versus Google. Google has their own mapping system.
Yeah.
DuckDuckGo doesn't. DuckDuckGo uses Apple Maps. And
Okay.
Apple Maps and Google Maps don't know each other.
Exactly.
So if you've spent all of your time like I have on all of my social media for my businesses and making sure everybody knows where my store is on Apple Maps, all of a sudden I searched for my store on DuckDuckGo one day and it pulled up, Apple Maps, didn't think anything about it, but I wasn't on there
You're right.
because Apple Maps doesn't know me. So I had to actually go into Apple Maps and put my store and pin it.
Exactly.
So it's just kind of one of those crazy things that is you.
I bet a lot of jewelers don't know that.
No.
Take note.
Take note.
Yeah. Like
Listeners.
I said, once companies
Good
start
tip.
forcing you to make other decisions,
Right.
you start finding other things out that, whoa,
Exactly.
there's other maps than Google.
That's
And
right.
they didn't know me. They know me now.
Yeah.
You can put
Way to
Anthony
go.
Jewelers Nashville in there and boom, it'll stick you right on top of my store.
That's good. So
Great.
explore all avenues. Don't
Yeah.
just keep,
Yeah.
Like
that.
I said, it's just one of those, the platforms that you were using for the last 10 years are not going to be the platforms you're going to use in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Keep
know,
them,
yeah,
but
keep
you need
them.
to,
Yeah.
just always be exploring. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. You just don't pay attention to the big guys.
Yeah.
Because exactly.
So another thing people go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Pearls of
Go ahead.
wisdom.
Yeah,
We're
tell
just
us.
killing it.
Killing it.
Everybody wants to know, where are we at with COVID?
Where are we at?
We're right here.
Yeah.
We're-
Exactly.
Right.
we're a day further away from yesterday from it.
Right.
It's interesting now. As a longtime first responder, the COVID pandemic was in my chain of command because there's the police department, fire department, FEMA, Homeland Security. There's all these various chains of command out there. And the COVID response was in the chain of command, which I'm in. So, and I didn't have any access to any different information than anybody else had. It was all public information. I just knew where to look.
Right.
But having been in that chain of command, that we actually, here's how FEMA works, okay? FEMA, kind of as a rule, doesn't own anything, okay? That FEMA has a couple of trailers with some water in it. But what they do is they'll take these county emergency response,
Okay.
like I'm out of Nashville, Tennessee. We sit around and think about what's the worst thing that could possibly happen. All right, let's make it 10 times worse than that. Then what do we need?
Right.
And then we submit this to FEMA, and FEMA will then give us money to buy all of those supplies.
Sure.
And so we have them. So with COVID, the one of the probably the thing that was the most frustrating for the response side of COVID was because we've all thought about what happened if we have a pandemic.
Right.
Well, let's make it worse than that. Let's make it the worst pandemic in the history of the world, and let's plan for it. So all of a sudden, there were a lot of elected governors, mayor, and officials that basically went, I don't like your plan, and went another direction.
Oh, geez.
And so when you started to see some states doing good, some states doing bad, this doing this, that, about half the people didn't follow the plan.
Right.
And it's just like, oh man, wait, we spent years developing this plan. We want to see it work.
Yeah.
And it worked in a lot of places. And, there was a lot of places it didn't work because people didn't follow it.
Yeah.
But so where are we as a society with COVID right now, especially as a business owner where you're open to the public, people are coming in and out. It's, I don't know, it's not past. We'll never get past COVID. COVID's always going to be around.
Right.
It's a manageable from an emergency side. We no longer consider it an emergency.
Yeah.
It is just something. It's out there. I can tell you, just because I pay attention to it, we have 141 people in the hospital system in Nashville, which is a regional hospital center, and there's 141 people as of Friday in Nashville that are experiencing COVID symptoms. I don't know if they're serious or not, but we're still paying attention. But but so as far as your business, it's what I've said all along. Whatever you've done to get to now, you did it right. Just keep doing that.
Right.
So just.
But you know
If
what's
it ain't broke,
Yeah.
Don't fix it.
Don't fix
So
it.
just keep.
Or like they say with the government, if it's not broke,
Broke.
they will fix
Fix
it
it
until they
right.
break it.
Until they
Yeah,
break it.
yeah.
That's
Well,
right.
you know what's interesting is we were talking about COVID for a while, and there was a lot of news, worldwide coverage, masks and so forth. And then now we have some other things popping up, monkeypox and smallpox coming back, right? My gosh, it's just crazy. There's so much.
If you've ever been through a natural disaster, that, for instance, in 2010, we had a major flood in Nashville. And granted, there was just one in Kentucky that happened.
Oh, yeah,
There's some
that's
stuff
tragic.
happening.
Oh.
There's stuff happening in Mississippi today.
Mississippi is
Yeah.
having a yes.
Right now. But
Terrible.
I remember after the 2010 flood in Nashville, every time it rained for 2 years, people freaked out.
Oh yeah,
It stays with you.
it does.
Yeah,
It does.
And so with COVID, we're about 2 years out of the emergency side of it, and so it is perfectly acceptable
Right.
to still be freaking out about it. You get that little tickle in your throat, and it's like, oh my God, did it get me?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in our town, even though masks are not mandated at this trade show we're at, we are still seeing people mask up.
Yeah.
We're still,
And if that makes you happy,
make
if,
sure you
if
get,
that makes you feel safe,
I'm
do
going to
it.
get my free government test just so I've taken
Absolutely.
them because I thought I had it. Or, again, as long as we're still knowing that it's here, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
If you're not letting it control, and
If
if you're not leaving your house because of COVID, still,
Yeah.
I'm really sorry.
Right.
But I don't think we're there. Obviously,
It's funny now that
And jewelers
you
are-
use the COVID excuse for getting out of certain things sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
You're talking to somebody you want to talk, you start calling. Oh yeah.
Hey, but you know what? I heard somebody say something about, back to my example earlier about the Hollywood thing and the
Yeah, yeah.
podcast, that they couldn't use COVID to get out of podcast because they were all remote.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, no,
So
no,
do
no.
your podcast. Well, we're zooming it.
Yeah. Dang it, I got to do it or whatever.
Yep.
So what else is going on in the jewelry business?
What else, Chuck?
Well, just so happens, everybody wants to know about lab-grown diamonds.
Ooh,
That is a
And-
big
in that,
topic.
Yep. We've
And
done a podcast or two on it.
and you'll do a podcast or two more on it.
I'm pretty
But-
sure we will.
Something, so just because I knew I was going to be on today, so I started asking around. We're at the show, asking different people different things about this. How are they handling it? And it reminded me of about 20 years ago, because with lab grown right now, okay, that there's two sides of this. You either sell them or you don't sell them. There are a few retailers in the middle that do both, but we are still right now very divided on it, as an industry, because there are stores, if they don't sell lab grown, they don't sell lab grown.
Right.
They've just taken
They're
a stance.
just-
We
yeah.
don't sell them. And stores that do sell them, we do sell lab grown.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, boy, have we ever been in this place before? And I've got to thinking, about 20 years ago, there was something that happened that divided the industry. And I'm like, what the heck was it? And so I asked around, and some old timers that have been in it as long as I have, I just said, do you remember something about that? And they go, moissanite. I went, that's right.
Moissanite.
Because moissanite was the very first, it was the latest incarnation of not a diamond, but kind of like a diamond, but cheaper than a diamond.
Above ground diamond.
Yes. And so with moissanite, I mean, look, we survived,
Yeah.
Right?
My God, it's like nobody,
Yeah.
So with moissanite, it was the same thing. You either sold them or you didn't. You wanted them in your store or you didn't, or you wanted them in or you didn't want them in.
Yeah.
And so at some point, moissanite just never took off.
Right.
I mean, there are people that still
Yeah.
make a tremendous amount of money selling moissanite, and there is a niche for that.
There is.
And if you're in that niche, I mean, you are banking the jack in there
Nice margin.
because it's a good product.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And, it's being sold as
Yeah.
what it is, and it looks good. And, if you choose to go that route, but there were a lot of people that chose not to, but it's still around. Moissanite, like all of us, we're still here.
So
we all survived it.
Why do you think some are so against lab grown?
funny you would ask.
Okay.
And for starters, I'll just put it right there,
All
circled
right.
in the middle. It's mental.
Mental.
Yes.
So, speaking to a lot of the lab-grown companies here
Mhm.
and other retailers, and kind of what I was going to talk about, which I'll get there now, is about with the insurance side of it, like doing insurance appraisal. Because let's take a very specific something that everybody can relate to,
Mhm.
a 1-carat round brilliant
Mhm.
SI1 H-color diamond
Mhm.
set in just a 6-prong Tiffany two-tone mounting.
Yeah.
You know, you can all picture it in your head.
Sure.
You can look at any diamond price guide and find a 1-carat SI1H.
Yeah.
Take that diamond to 10 different appraisers. You will not get 2 that match. Okay? So, one of the things is the argument, it's not that we don't know how to price it, because pretty much all of us, you could get out of the 10, at least 5 of them would have the exact same wholesale cost. You know, that if you would look at their
on that.
notes, at least 5 of them, your basis points to start with are going to be the same. So when it comes to doing appraisal, everybody's got their own system as to how to calculate it. And last I heard from the insurance industry, an insurance appraisal, a loss, is usually on an appraisal that's between 6 and 7 years old.
Okay.
So one of the things that I have to factor in my head is if somebody has that 1-carat diamond, okay, and they lose it in 6 years, do they end up with a 3/4 carat, or do they end up with a 1-carat? And without having to pay these exorbitant premiums because I appraised it for 10 times what it was worth, just to protect that. So there's there's kind of a funny thing in there, kind of a balancing act. But when it comes to the synthetic diamonds, one of the things that we're kind of struggling with is how do you appraise something today that has been historically going down in value since its inception? Because let's think about this, the actual lab grown diamond. Okay, first, for everybody out there, if you're not familiar, let me give you a quick little gemological lesson.
All right.
That a synthetic gemstone, okay, by definition, a synthetic gemstone has to have a natural counterpart, okay? Like you take cubic zirconia. That does not occur in nature. So it is not a synthetic anything. It is an imitation diamond, okay? So for something to be synthetic, it has to have a natural counterpart. So by definition, a synthetic gemstone has to match its natural counterpart chemically, physically, and optically within very narrow limits.
Okay.
So let's take ruby, okay? Ruby is crystallized aluminum oxide. Its chemical elements are Al2O3, okay? So a natural ruby is crystallized Al2O3. A synthetic ruby is crystallized aluminum oxide Al2O3, okay? So they are the exact same stone, they just came to life in a different way.
Right.
So when it comes to lab-grown diamonds, a lab-grown diamond is a synthetic diamond. So a diamond is what they call a single element material or mineral.
Got it.
That a diamond is not Al2O anything. A diamond is C. That's it, just pure carbon. It is a one element mineral.
Right.
So a natural diamond is C. A lab-grown diamond is C. That it is basically the exact same thing.
Got it.
So one of the things somebody mentioned, if they're the same, how can you tell them apart? And so that was kind of an interesting, now you can't visually, I've been a gemologist since 1983. And if you use the old diamond testers that we use between moissanite and diamond, that tested thermal conductivity. Well, a synthetic diamond, because it has the exact same thermal conductivity as a diamond.
Right.
So the new, the lab-grown diamond testers, I think it is ultraviolet light. I wrote a column on this about a year and a half ago. I meant to look it up, but
I remember you writing on that on this subject.
Yeah, but I think it was ultraviolet light, the way the light passes through it. It may be something else. Regardless, it's a expensive machine, $5,000 or $6,000 that you pointed at the diamond, and it'll do something and tell you. But so somebody said, well, if you can't tell the difference, and what's the difference? And I'm like, well, you can tell the difference. There's a little tell here that, but when it comes to synthetic diamonds, that just talking to a lot of the players in there, that it like the cost is starting to level out on these, that there's only a point where you start adding more manufacturers, because every day you hear about another factory opening up doing lab-grown diamonds. But as of right now, what all of the lab-grown people here are telling me is, where is the world here? That is still competitive, and they are still selling, and they're still selling well. But he said that one of the differences between the natural diamond and the lab-grown diamond is, he said, the lab-grown diamond, the wholesale pricing structure changes about every other month. Whereas with, natural diamonds, most of us go off the wrap system.
It's more steady, right?
Yeah, it's very steady, but it's one of those things that it doesn't fluctuate that much. But with the lab-growns, that they are fluctuating.
Is that a supply and demand issue? That's why that's happening? Or?
Yeah. Well, with the supply and demand, what's kind of interesting about that is, once again, why don't people want to carry them? Why do people want to carry them? One, there's a mental issue there, that those of us that have been in it for a long time, it's just like, it's a fake diamond. It's not a real diamond or whatever. But we had the same sort of mental thought process towards moissanite. But there are generations of people that are coming up into the jewelry business that didn't have those decades that I have of all of this, of natural mined diamonds, that kind of like, with a smartphone, pretty much everybody that's in their late 20s or whatever, basically they have had a phone attached to the end of their arm since they were 13 years old.
That's
and
right.
so they don't know the other world. So, where's it going to go? I've got some people today are telling me that it's going to end up being a niche market and it's just going to be something over here. And then I've got somebody else telling me that it's going to overtake the natural diamond market. It's going to be the biggest thing since sliced bread. And I'll be honest with you, you know where it's going to go? Wherever it's going to go. It's
Thank you.
We have absolutely no way to predict this.
I guarantee what you think is going to happen to it, probably is not going to happen. It is what it's going to be. I mean, because again, I've heard most people, to me, they're all telling me that it's going to tank. Lab is just going to tank, and it's not going to be worth anything. And I'm like, I just show me this crystal ball you're reading in, because I know you might be an expert, but we don't know.
Well,
we can't be certain.
Well, we started this talking about the appraisal side of it, but that's where it gets tricky, because with the natural diamond market, like I said, I'm looking, 5 or 6 years down the road, and some people will say you can't do that, but you're not the boss of me. I'll do what I want. I own the company. I will do what I want.
I want to do it.
I really liked Aaliyah from JHA.
Yeah.
And she came on the podcast, and we talked about a few things as well as lab-grown diamonds. And I'm certainly not the expert on it, but she said that one of the reasons why she is not a big fan is how the lab, I'm definitely not generalized, but there's a lot of talk in trying to market lab-grown diamonds. The talk is why natural diamonds are bad, and she, the environment, this and that, a lot of different things. And she's like, I'm not a big fan of that. I don't like that. There's lab-grown diamonds have helped her and her family make a living for many years. It's natural. There's a lot of things about it, but the lab-grown diamonds,
touting it as eco-friendly, and the message to it, I think that's what
well,
she said.
that is actually my next topic. But before we get to that next topic, let's go ahead and go to our second sponsor, please.
Okay. Yes, our second sponsor. Okay. Is that me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, it's me again. Hey, all right. So sponsor number 2, the Jewelry Store Marketers. We do digital marketing for, and one of the main things that we focus in is local search engine optimization, because when somebody's searching on Google, or on a search engine, DuckDuckGo, they have the buying intent in many cases to go seek out that product or service. And a lot of people don't go to social media and search for engagement ring. Maybe they want to see what other people have, but when they're searching for something that they want to purchase, they go to a search engine and search for it. And that's why, and the organic search listings that come up really have a lot more trust factor, and you have your ads at the top, but organic search listings really have the best click-through rate, so we really focus on SEO, and when we're building websites, we always keep that in mind. So if you need SEO services, local SEO, give us a call and we can show you how you can improve it and increase your organic listings.
And how can our listeners find you?
And so you can find us at jewelrystoremarketers.com. You could go to our website, phone numbers there, which I can't remember, as well as our social media and so forth. So, yeah, thank you.
Good. All right. So just kind of to wrap it up, something that I've been, paying attention to on this, that De Beers was a big diamond cartel, conglomerate, whatever you want to call them, that they don't have that stranglehold any longer, but they're still a major player.
Yeah.
So in the state of Oregon, De Beers is building a lab-grown facility.
Really?
In Oregon. So, and they're in conjunction with Lightbox. I was just hearing about this today, but I've had several people say that, they're De Beers and Lightbox are building this facility. So what I'm curious about, because like they're talking about that as you start getting more manufacturers putting more product on the market, where do prices go? We don't know. They're going to go where they go. But one of the things is that when they talk about, people talking about it being eco-friendly, there's a lot of marketing to try to make it appear that lab-grown diamond are very eco-friendly.
Yeah.
And, I'm not going to get into the specifics of it because I don't know. I don't believe it's as eco-friendly as they say it is. But that's why most of these facilities are in other countries where they don't have regulations and oversight like OSHA, EPA here.
Yeah.
But so now what I'm curious about, if De Beers is building a facility in Oregon, which is probably one of the most they've got to have, I bet they have a state level EPA and a local level EPA of regulations. So, how do you produce a product over here, and it's just kind of one of those that it's got a lot of us today that are scratching our heads.
Yeah. Things that make you want to go,
But let's also remember, we're talking about De Beers here.
It's De Beers.
They didn't become a bazillion-dollar company by making bad decisions over and over and over again. So whatever it is, it's very well thought out. It's very well funded. They know what they're doing.
So you're going to be keeping an eye on the situation.
Oh, yeah, because I want to know.
Sure.
But so we got to talking about this, and something when it's probably only been maybe 2 years, maybe 3, but probably closer to 2, that we've been able to produce like 1 carat lab-grown diamonds. That they've been messing with this for decades, trying to get this to work out. And however they figured it out, it was about a year or 2, maybe 3, where they started actually producing 1 carat, 2 carat, half carats, like actual gem quality diamonds. And you hear at the show, you can walk around, there's just cases full of 1 carat, 2 carat lab-grown diamonds. So about 5 or 6 years ago, we were wondering, that are they going to do Melly? Are they going to do small diamonds? Are they going to do this? Well, once they started coming up with the technology to simulate the two, or to identify the two, all of a sudden it turns out that a big chunk of the Melly that was in a lot of these mountings was synthetic diamonds. So something I got to thinking about is, all of those experiments that they've been doing for the last 10 or 15 years trying to figure out what to do with it, they may not have been able to produce a big 1-carat diamond, but and just talking to some of the trade people around here, that they said that, some of the reports and some of the studies are about 30 to 40% of the melee that is in like jewelry store cases today are synthetic.
Are synthetic.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
That
about
kind of blew my mind when I kept hearing these reports and things that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that got me to thinking today, what did they do with all those experiments? Well, they probably cut them into melee and stuck them in showcases.
There you go.
Right.
But now I know that I've seen a lot of people talking about this, that that it's starting to become a problem with, unscrupulous people rounding and polishing the girdles off of the synthetic diamonds to remove the laser inscription. And even though I don't think there's a law that says you have to do it, every reputable lab-grown diamond company laser inscribes it and says it's a synthetic.
Yeah.
But so now there's a lot of talk out there about some, and I've got friends that are in the pawn business and the buying and selling, and they've just got a flat out policy straight up. We're not going to buy. We're not going to buy them because they don't want to introduce it into their systems.
Right.
And
no cross contamination.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so
wow, that's
so somebody asked me, they're like going, "Do you sell synthetics and lab growns?" And I said no. And they said, "Why?" And I said, "Because I haven't lost any money yet by not selling them. I don't have a call for it."
Very good answer.
Yeah. But the minute somebody calls and says, "I want to buy a lab-grown diamond," and I take the principal's stance of no, and then I find out they went somewhere and bought it and I lost the money.
You're going to be bitter.
Yeah, then I'm going to be like, well, that was a dumb.
Dumbass.
So like I said, it's in my world, it hasn't happened yet, but it's happening in a lot of worlds out there. And like I said, it's going to go back to the Moissanite if you were here in the business.
So your quick tip on lab-grown diamonds for the jewelers would be,
you just got to take a stand. It's just one of those. You're either going to do it or you're not. You're either going to be on the fence or you're not on the fence. You're either going to ride the fence or you're going to be on one yard or the other.
Right.
It's just but like I say, we did what it was and explained exactly what it was. So now you actually know this is what it is. It is actually pure carbon, crystallized carbon, although lab-grown diamond can be grown in about 35 days, whereas the natural diamond in the ground takes about, 30 or 40 million years or something like that.
Nearly a billion.
A little bit different.
Yeah.
Wow. Chuck here, always a plethora of knowledge and information.
Good. Yeah.
So it's always, I don't know what episode this is, but we definitely need Chuck on the regular.
Yeah.
Something that
We need and I don't have to be here always. I think you guys could just take some.
Well, something I'm going to do
Let's get him
with
his
this.
own.
Well, what I'm going to do is
on
kind of
vacation.
branch out a little bit on this and just get with you and me, and we'll get specialists in the gemology world.
That's a great idea.
And then you and me and somebody in the gemology world. We'll get somebody in the metallurgy world to discuss the different alloys of metals and stuff. Because we got to hit the bench jewelers. Yeah. We need to focus on the appraisers.
We just want to keep the Pearls of Wisdom podcast out there for newbies, for the veterans, and
maybe it's a segment. It's a segment of Pearls of Wisdom.
Hey, like I said, it's new. It's the podcast space is a new space in the world.
We love it. We've had such great response.
And just remember, we went from the yellow pages to the podcast space.
Yep.
So,
We went from
all right. Well, thanks for having me.
All right. Well, Chuck, as always, it's been amazing and a really great time here. And we are wrapping up the last day of the Atlanta Jewelry Show. Another one under the belt, on the books. So.
All right. Well, everybody, thanks for having me.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Woo!
Thanks for listening to the Pearls of Wisdom Jewelry Podcast. For more information about the show, please visit southernjewelrynews.com/podcast, brought to you by Southern Jewelry News and Jewelry Store Marketers. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you can catch the next show. See you then.